G'day Sports by Fry fans, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Sports by Fry YouTube channel. It's been a bit of a hiatus since I made my last appearance. To be honest, I haven't really got any good excuses. I've been waiting for some meaningful content, and now that basketball is back, I'm using this as a good excuse to get the content machine that is my YouTube channel back up and running. I'm going to try and post more regular videos. I've got a couple of things on the back burner that I'm working on, and today's episode is going to focus on one of the articles that I wrote a couple of days ago, zeroing in on one player from all 30 NBA teams that I want to focus on this preseason. As basketball fans are well aware, the NBA is back. Thank God. It has been a pretty dreary last couple of weeks and months after the free agency and draft lull died down. So basketball's nearly here. We're going to focus on some of the things throughout the preseason. A lot of it really isn't worth watching, we know that, but there are some players and some things that I think are worth monitoring. And today, I'm not going to discuss all 30 teams and all 30 players. I will put the link to the article in the description down below so you can check that out. But I will skim through 7 to 8 of the dudes who I'm interested in following over the next few weeks. Number 1, first cab off the rank. I am very intrigued to see what happens early on in the season with Caris LeVert, the Brooklyn Nets guard who pretty much, I don't want to say he was in all-star form because it was only for about 15 games, but he started the year gangbusters last year. Granted, this Brooklyn team is very different entering a new season. As I'm sure we all know, Kyrie Irving arrived in the off-season along with Kevin Durant and his bung Achilles, so Kyrie will dominate a lot of the touches, but it's not too dissimilar to when D'Angelo Russell was on the squad last year. So I'll be very interested to see what exactly LeVert can bring to the table. The Nets traded for Taurean Prince in the offseason as well, who I think is another dude who'll vie for a starting shooting guard, small forward spot alongside LeVert, or maybe push him back onto the bench. But LeVert definitely has the skill set to be a very impactful two-way player. He got a contract extension in the last few weeks from the Nets, so it'll be interesting to watch him, especially early, because if he can be that type of player who can average 17 to 18 points this season, and then you just instantly slot Kevin Durant and his 25, 30 points a game, then LeVert could eventually become the member or a third member of a big three along with Kyrie. I don't think he can become a third all-star alongside those two, but you never know. He is still young. He's had a lot of issues with injuries early on in his career. He did suffer a pretty brutal dislocated/fractured ankle last year, and I think he went through some injury issues at Michigan as well. But I think if he can stay on the court, there's no reason why he can't be a very impactful player on both sides of the ball. Another young guard out in the Eastern Conference who I've got my eyes on, especially as a Cavs fan, I'll be following this man very closely, and that is Collin Sexton. He was drafted last year by the Cavs, the first pick after the LeBron era ended, which didn't really pan out well. We all knew that the Cavs were going to stink last year, but I'll be honest, Kevin Sexton was a bit of a bright spot. He kind of surprised me, especially as the season progressed, how consistent he stayed. Granted, he was a rookie. He's small. He's not frail, I don't want to say, but small is a good way to put it. And going up against big NBA dudes night in, night out is pretty tough for a young dude. And he held his own. He shot the ball reasonably well, and I was pretty considerably happy with the way that he shot the ball in catch and shoot scenarios. Made a pretty good percentage of his threes as well. So out of Alabama, he was seen as a bit more of a aggressive, well, not really a shooter. He was a bit more of a rim runner and got to the paint a lot to get his buckets. But if he can spot up and feed off a lot of Darius Garland's passes, who's another guard that Cleveland drafted in the draft just gone, then there's no reason, I know, I'm probably getting it too ahead of myself, but there's no reason why these two can't form their own Eastern Conference version of what the Portland Trail Blazers have with Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum. Granted, they've got a long way to go before they get to any of those comps, but Collin Sexton looks like a good shooter. Darius Garland's a good shooter. The tricky part will be just to see how these guys coexist. Both dudes are probably used to having the ball in their hands throughout their careers to date. There's other ball hogs on the team like Jordan Clarkson, Brandon Knight. I'm not going to get too depressed and reel off any more Cavs players, but those two guards in Sexton and Garland and how they mesh, especially early in the season, will be interesting to watch. Because if for some reason they don't really work, don't rule out a trade, seeing one or the other, probably Sexton as the odd man out. I don't think the Cavs would trade Garland very early into his rookie season. But I don't think they'd trade either of them, to be honest. But you never know. If they start to butt heads, it could happen. The third NBA player that I'm focusing on is another guard, but this guard has achieved a hell of a lot more than any of the dudes I've already mentioned in his NBA career. The 2016-2017 MVP Russell Westbrook will be wearing Houston Rockets colours this year, and I am one person who is very high on what the Rockets can achieve. Granted, meshing with James Harden and seeing if they can coexist has a lot of people hosing down their potential championship aspirations, but I don't know, call it a gut instinct, call me a bit crazy, but I feel like Russ and Harden can make this work. The interesting part, and what will be the thing that I'll be watching for, is just how Russ plays when he doesn't have the ball in his hand. I think over the last 3 seasons when he's been posting triple-doubles, he's had the highest usage rate in the entire league. If not, it's been right up there. He's been dominating for OKC and has had the rock just solely in his possession. And if he wasn't leading the league in usage rate, there's a chance that he was finishing second to James Harden. So how they deploy Russ and Harden, they kind of got it right with Chris Paul and James Harden, but not really. I feel like they should have kind of staggered both of those players' minutes a bit more, especially CP3, and eased his workload off a bit. But Russ is still nearing the end of, but in his athletic prime, so he can still contribute for sure. So if Harden and Russ can work well together, there's no reason why they both can't put up near triple-doubles and lead the Rockets to a pretty impressive record. They're my pick in the early going for the team to finish with a number 1 seed at the top of the West Conference, just because I feel like going up against one or both of those dudes on any given night, they're going to come and give 110%. I think one of the preseason games literally just finished not too long ago, and in that game, Harden had a 37-point game against the Clippers in Hawaii. It was so. You never know. These dudes are going to put up plenty of numbers on a nightly basis, and I feel like that'll get them a lot of wins in the regular season. Might not translate to a lot of success in the playoffs. These two are perennially coming short in that regard, but I feel like these two will kind of get it right and generate plenty of stories throughout the season, but the early going will dictate just exactly how they can mesh, especially when Westbrook doesn't have the rock. The fourth player that I want to discuss, and honestly, a bloke that I'll probably be focusing most of my attention on throughout this season, and he might be the one that I'm focusing on the most out of this entire list that I compiled, is Myles Turner from the Indiana Pacers. In the FIBA World Cup, we got to see him show some flashes of offensive growth, but let's be honest, throughout his entire NBA career to date, he's just been showing flashes. He hasn't really improved on that side of the ball, probably in the last 2 seasons, maybe last 3 seasons. I know it sounds a bit harsh, but he's a dude that has all the tools to be a dominant big man in today's NBA, and for whatever reason, he hasn't really put it all together yet. I know that maybe you could say that he doesn't fit perfectly with Domantas Sabonis or Thaddeus Young before him, and maybe he hasn't really been used in the right way, but granted, Turner hasn't put up the numbers that I honestly expected him to. He's been touted as a fringe all-star and a bloke that's going to make the leap for a number of seasons now, and I think entering his 5th season, it's now or never, buddy. He's great on the defensive end. He led the league in blocks per game last year, and he looked like a defensive anchor for the Team USA during the World Cup, but with Victor Oladipo limited and sore to start the year, there's rumours that he might even miss, up until All-Star break, which is about 30 games off the top of my head. So with those things a little bit doubtful, actually no, sorry, that'd be closer to 50 games. So if Victor misses that much time, Malcolm Brogdon coming to the team does give them a little bit of a boost, but for the Pacers to be relevant and to live up to a lot of this sleeper potential that they generated after they got Brogdon and early on in the off-season, Turner's going to have to make the leap. They don't have Wes Matthews anymore. They don't have Bojan Bogdanovic, so they've lost a couple of offensive weapons. I know Jeremy Lamb comes over as well, but I'm not super excited about that. TJ Warren should be nice, but I think Turner is really the key to Indiana's success this year. He has the potential to unlock a hell of a lot, and if he pushes up his scoring, similar to Caris LeVert, somewhere near that 18, even getting a bit greedy, closer to the 20-point per game mark, then Pacers are going to be a team to keep your eye on. 5th bloke on the list, and someone who comes to Los Angeles with a shiny new championship ring, is Danny Green. We've known that he's a great marksman, has been for a number of years. In the 2013 finals, he set the then record for the most threes made. Didn't have the same profound impact during Toronto's championship run last year, but he is a great player on both sides of the ball, a great leader, and with the Lakers, let's be honest, pretty thin in a lot of areas, how Danny Green performs this season could dictate how far the Lakers go. Granted, I know most of their success will hinge on the health and the performance of AD and LeBron, but those two dudes can only do so much. I know that they're probably going to get them to the playoffs and to a top 3, 4 seed in the West, but Danny Green and his hot shooting could be someone that wins them and swings a series, could win a couple of playoff games off his own back, and he's a noteworthy defender. He's not great. He's a bit older now. I think he's in his about 11th, 12th season, something like that. So Green still does bring a lot to the table, though, and I don't really have a lot of faith in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or Quinn Cook moving the needle, but Kyle Kuzma's injury issues are a bit concerning. DeMarcus Cousins is out for the year. Dwight Howard doesn't fill me with confidence. So for that reason, I know that there are other holes on their roster, but just how Danny Green performs for the Lakers in 2019-2020, I think could be very, very crucial for their success. The next bloke I'm keeping an eye on will have a bit of a bigger role for his team this season, in my opinion, is Eric Bledsoe. Some people were a little bit hesitant to see the Bucks give him a contract extension during the season last year, but I think earned his 4-year, $70 million payday. Didn't really show up in the playoffs and live up to the hype, but that was when Malcolm Brogdon was back in the rotation, and it was a little bit of a funky mix. Bledsoe is a bit of a... how would I word it? I don't know. He's a bit of an enigma on offense. He looked like a great bucket getter when he was with Phoenix, but since he's moved to the Bucks, hasn't really dominated scoring the ball. Granted, there is only so much you can do when you're playing with an MVP like Giannis, but I feel like Bledsoe alongside Chris Middleton, I feel like those two could go a long way to really propelling the Bucks into the elite category out east. Them and Philly, I think, are almost 1 and 2 at the moment in whatever order you have preferably, but if Bledsoe can get to the rack, generate a couple more free throws, his free throw rate was really down a lot last year, then he could push his points per game closer to the 20-point mark that he did drop when he was wearing a Phoenix Suns jersey. And if he can do that, there's no reason why he can't be a great two-way player, maybe a fringe all-star out east. And if he keeps that play up throughout the playoffs, then it's going to be very interesting. I'll be watching him early on, but this pick was more or less made to see how he goes throughout the duration of the season. Michael Brogdon missed ballpark 2/3 of the year last year, so Bledsoe held his own throughout that period, but he doesn't have Bledsoe there. He doesn't have Brogdon there anymore. So Bledsoe has the keys to be the team's point guard. They shifted their rotation a little bit, but he will be the guy that could help them unlock a lot of potential and could help the Bucks win an elusive championship. Last up, the final bloke I'm going to talk about is a point guard who actually switched teams this off-season, and I was one of the people that kind of raised my eyebrows when I saw him switch jerseys. That is Ricky Rubio. He's now a Phoenix Sun, fresh off an MVP performance at the FIBA World Cup. So we know that Ricky can still play. He's made a career out of finding an open man and averages somewhere near 8 assists for his NBA career. But the reason I'm going to be watching him early on is just to see how he fits with this Phoenix team. And I don't know if he actually meshes with their timeline. He actually enters the Phoenix Suns season as the most tenured NBA player on their roster with his 8 years of experience, and he's going to have 10 teammates that are either in their first or second NBA season. So doesn't mean that Ricky Rubio can't help drag them out of the gutter. I know that he's definitely going to help Devin Booker get a couple of open looks, and him, Ricky Rubio that is, and DeAndre Ayton in the pick and roll could be a pretty dynamic duo. So he'll definitely be helpful in those regards, but I do wonder just how much he propels the Suns forward, and if this signing was a little bit of a throw a lot of money at a problem, that Phoenix has been looking for a long-term point guard solution for a couple of years now, and Ricky Rubio might not be the greatest long-term answer. He is an immediate stopgap in that spot, and getting a little bit on in age, and he has had some injury issues in the past. I do wonder if this is a great fit alongside some of the young Phoenix core, but he played pretty well with Utah over the last 2 years and was able to stay fit and healthy. So I hope for Suns fans' sake that he can do that, because if Ricky Rubio can go out there and throw up his, 13 points a night and put up 8 to 9 dimes, maybe even push closer to 10 dimes, could be a real boost for the Phoenix Suns. In Utah, he was forced to play a little bit more offensive-minded, and I think when he was back in his Minnesota days, when he was at his freewheeling best, trying to find the open man and play a bit more of a pass-first role, then that was when he excelled, and he's got plenty of weapons around him on the Suns. So will it fit? I don't know, maybe, but I'll definitely be watching in the early part of the season to see if he does find the camaraderie with those young Suns dudes to help propel them up the standings. That's going to do it. I've covered 7 blokes. I think that's enough. Like I said, if you want to check out the entire article, I will throw the link down in the description. So thank you for tuning in to this episode. Like I said, I know it's been a long time since I've been on YouTube, so I'm back now. I'm going to be ramping up my NBA coverage. I'm going to probably start doing a couple of NFL things as well, and I'm going to start videoing a lot more of my articles because I know some people like to read them, some people like to watch it, consume that way, and some people like to listen. If you do like to listen, make sure you check out the podcast. I'm starting to ramp up again my production, doing Fry's Fast Fives, quick 7 to 15-minute bites of trending topics over a certain 48-hour period. So did one of them on Thursday. We'll probably do another one on Sunday, so make sure you check that out. Otherwise, make sure you give the thumbs up button a mash on this video. Subscribe for more episodes. But thanks for watching this one. Until next time, peace.